Alright, so in today's video, I got the Platinum Trophy on the brand new Indiana Jones game that just came out on PlayStation, and it also did just release within the last year, so it is very new anyways. But this game was surprisingly good in a lot of people's eyes. However, getting the Platinum and 100% completion today was nothing short of sheer torture. Over 500 collectibles are within the caverned and twisted open world areas of this game, making my mind go slightly more insane. I wasn't even aware it could get worse, but I guess it always can, let's be real. In total, there is 46 trophies including the Platinum today. It took me a solid 25 hours to complete, with over half that being from just chasing collectibles down. I'm gonna go cry now.
Oh my god!
Anyways, the first stage in completing this game today is just beat the story like usual with story games. There's also 0 missables, making this even more of a breeze to complete. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle first opens up with the introductory treasure hunting scene before the game's plot really kicks off, showing Indy in his absolute prime here, even performing the cult classic weight swap pressure plate move, which just like in the movies does not work. Also, we got backstabbed immediately by this dude who looks like Gargamel's son, but it's not to worry because he saw the fiery ashes of hell right after. You then just run out of the cave because it is collapsing due to us performing such a flawed plunder attempt, and upon making it to the exit, the game's first trophy pops called the Golden Idol. Next, we see current day, and Indiana Jones here wakes up from a good old nightmare with rain and thunder all around. And by the way, in my It Takes Two video, which I did do with my girlfriend, a lot of you refuse to believe me. And to prove you all wrong, I'm gonna do a girlfriend review at 900,000, so drop a like and subscribe.
Drop a like and subscribe to Its Illusion's gaming YouTube channel.
Anyways, that intro treasure hunting mission we just did was a nightmare or flashback of sorts if you couldn't tell. However, current day would become a nightmare in itself when this literal giant broke into the college that Indiana works at and stole a relic from us before trashing the place and running away with it. We then saw Indy get knocked out again and he woke up again. Bro has somehow taken 2 naps within the first 10 minutes today. This is a revolutionary stat. But then you have to do a little artifact cleanup around the college museum, which was also followed by us lifting this bookshelf up to the window the giant flew through and finding a pendant he left behind, which is a key item for later in the game. Indy then decided that all of this was far too weird to ignore, and we had a packing up gameplay portion, which was again revolutionary. I love packing up bags in a fiction video game to leave to a fictional location within this real world that we live in. It makes sense, okay? But then another trophy popped and we were off on today's journey, essentially trying to figure out who that giant was and why they wanted the cat so bad. I understand being down bad for pussy. My boy Phil knows that oh so well. But breaking into a college museum is crazy. Anyways, you end up inside of Castle St. Angelo of Rome after a neat little travel. Not sure if that ticket was one way, but flying in the 1930s was super good, I imagine. This castle we are in, by the way, is controlled by evil bad people of the 1930 to 1940 era, and I won't mention what they are called in fear of YouTube's policies, but these are not good guys for sure. And the castle is also outside of Vatican City, which is the first city of the game and where over 100 collectibles are. I already want to cry again thinking about it. But within the castle, it kind of served as a good intro to stealth, and if you can't tell by my gameplay footage, I was not good at stealth. However, I don't really believe it's all my fault since this game's stealth is kind of trash. I would also end up getting another trophy here from just finding my first adventure book of the game. These can be used to learn new skills and boost the stats throughout. You also have to get all of them or almost all of them for the Platinum as well. And this castle, as far as I can remember, didn't really hold anything groundbreaking inside of it. Instead, it was used just for us to even enter the Vatican City, because it's kind of on lockdown due to it being within the enemy lines and also having treasure within, which a lot of people have their eyes on. But once we did make it through the castle, we met up with our informant inside of Vatican City being named Antonio. I knew one of those in high school, and I'm pretty sure bro is on the list now, which is just a fun fact for you all. But the Antonio of this game was a holy man. He was about to preach to me before the game abruptly crashed. This is one of many crashes today, by the way, which is just swell. But that also set me back to before I reached the exit, and quite far as a matter of fact. So let me rant real quick. Indiana Jones, The Great Circle, made by Bethesda, has for some reason in the big 25 not put in an autosave in linear moments, instead only at certain checkpoints or areas of the game. So if you don't reach the invisible wall of code in the game's map that triggers save, you literally cannot save your game, and this happens all the time, making you go 10 to 20 minutes without a save at some points. Adding on frequent game crashes, it really makes this system suck cock like Bonnie Blue. But once I did finally make it back to Antonio, he would then just yap to us, and he did it all night long. I'm actually quite impressed. He even dressed us up to look just like him. We all have our kinks, I guess. But the first sort of mission inside of Vatican City had us explore a secret passage with the legend Antonio, and you ultimately find a dead man still in the grind. This is how I feel after platinuming a game, by the way, so turn on those post notifications. Anyways, after that, you then had to go find the quote-unquote post office, but it's really just a vendor within the game that you had to buy a camera from to begin documenting the BS we find and see throughout the story. He also sells us maps for the Vatican collectibles later, which is nice, but once I did purchase the camera from him and then snapped a photo of the guy, another trophy pop from doing that. I then had to go around the city and snap 4 photos of inscriptions hinting at the mystery we were trying to uncover with the giant people and this unknown language. Once getting a photo of all 4, we then took it back to Antonio and the 2 of us uncovered what they were all pointing towards, and it was this tower within the city, so then we headed there obviously. And after opening a little puzzle door of sorts, we apparently entered the underworld, and my balls shrunk up inside of me like Caitlyn Jenner out of fear. Anyways, inside the underworld there was a ton of puzzles and photos to be taken. Overall, it was a solid session into what Indiana Jones goes through on a daily basis. Now if you've been watching me for a while, you'll know that my kryptonite is puzzles in games because I'm slightly retarded. But after we reached the end of the tomb, we found what we were after. However, a giant ass fucking bulldozer just broke through the ceiling and somehow didn't fall down, crushing everything of value. But the goal now is just to escape, seeing as the tomb we are in is now packed full of enemies, and combat in this game, regardless of difficulty, is generally a challenge. But if you stealth this area, you can climb out fairly easy without alerting anyone. We also ended up stalking a nun named Gina who would go on to be our partner this game. And she's also not a nun because, well, I mean, look at her. She looks like she could be on the cover of Sports Illustrated, not the newest nun horror movie. A little bit after meeting Gina, I also got a trophy, but just from eating a cornetto, which is just a croissant from what I can tell. Indy also got angry and was trying to battle the carbs with his fists. Relatable. But Gina and Indy would then begin to team up like I mentioned, and I did a fieldwork mission, which is just a side quest. But we climbed this tall ass tower with her to save this nun in captivity by the bad guys. Once reaching the top, I also got 2 trophies as well, which was fun. And I actually detoured away from the main story for a bit to go do some more side quests because they all give trophies. And I have an addiction to trophies, much like how Joshua Block has an addiction to discount margaritas. But the next one I did was called the Mad Priest, and it was from just retrieving the diary of that dead guy we found earlier and then giving it to his fat side chick for pleasurable reading. So here's that trophy pop. I also got 1 random trophy right after that from throwing an apple at an enemy, which is funny. We also met a student and professor guy who got caught up in the midst of the journey we are on, and they have a fieldwork mission on every area of the game, I'm pretty sure. But during the Vatican City arc, you have to save the student, then just retrieve this stone fragment for them to study, and the trophy pops after you give it to them. I also ended up getting caught in some street fighting after leaving the safety of the Pope's quarters, and I smashed a guitar over some dude's head. Imagine seeing father smash a guitar on someone in broad daylight on a Thursday. This is why we repent on Sundays, kids. But then I returned 8 different photos of inscriptions I had taken, 4 of which were story, but the other 4 were hidden. And after placing all of them for Antonio to study tonight in bed, I got another side trophy. But then I did finally return to the main story, being on the mission called the Stolen Cat Mummy. And it had us inside of another tomb, but with even more puzzles and parkour. And fire for some reason, which did make it more intense, I'm not gonna lie, so W developers. But that entire tomb section was literally just in place for us to have more trouble reaching a secret artifact room that could have easily been accessed by just sneaking around more rooms of the buildings in Vatican City. However, once inside, we found the cat mummy that got stolen from us by the giants, and then the giants also did show up to take it back. Bro loves pussy. At least he's a bro for real. So there was then a boss fight against him, and the dude took more back shots than I honestly imagined he could take. However, once you do knock him out again, this giant party of evil characters just waltz on into the room. And the main evil guy here is named Voss. This guy is also after the cat mummy and treasure today, that being the Great Circle. He then orders all of his minions to smash the different cat mummies to get the puzzle pieces that are inside of them because they all contained one. But seeing this made it very dire to us that we needed to follow them and get ahead of the hunt because they have a giant lead on us now. So the final mission inside the Vatican area was to literally just hop on their blimp as they rode off to the next destination. And you almost get caught on the way up to it, but then an army of giants show up as if there was a free Pop-Tart giveaway. We also just whipped onto the blimp as it flew away, which was very realistic. And Gina made it inside the thing before we did also, which is just insane. She must have sucked her way on, I don't believe it. But we did get a trophy though once she pulled us up, so that's cool. The blimp then flew all the way to Giza, which is the pyramid place we all know, and it's also the next area of this game's story. It's also one of the most confusing areas of the game in my opinion because there is a ton of underground locations which this game's map does not mark when looking at it, and it's a big problem later on for sure. But the flow of this game's story functions basically the same, and you kind of just go from location to location searching for clues and finding nothing for the most part, while causing mass chaos and property damage of historical sites. Indiana Jones, baby. I also did apparently kill some enemy from shoving him off of a ledge, but the ledge was literally 5 feet high, so the dude must have just been scared of heights, I assume. But I did manage to make it to this underground puzzle with lights, and I gotta say, despite me, well, despising puzzles in games, this one had some fucking great puzzles which had very neat solutions without being too mind-bending. But after doing this light mirror puzzle, a bunch of scorpions got dropped into the room, and I low-key pissed myself. First it's snakes, then it's scorpions. What else are they gonna throw down here to scare us? Maybe JoJo Siwa off her meds, who the fuck knows? But then Gina and Indy had to crawl through the dark back to the entrance to escape and then crawled out literally of the tomb. The two then shared a scenic drink of water, nature's piss if you will, and someone kept on chanting "get it on" in the background as the two were very close in proximity. However, a scorpion would then sting Indy and we got a trophy, so that's an unfortunate outcome. A little bit after that, I also did just simply learn 10 abilities from adventure books for another trophy relating to that part of the game, and I also got a trophy from eating this fancy dessert bread. I have no clue how to say its name and it might be racist if I did so, but here's the trophy. I then did some field work for a dude named Omar, and he had me steal the panties from the Queen Mother, but it was super graphic, so I'll just blur out that section. But we did get a trophy like usual from the side quests in this game, so here's that popping. I also just revisited a location in this game, which means fast traveling back to the area we already left, and the only real option is Vatican City, seeing as we haven't gone anywhere else yet. But you get a trophy, so here it is. And the game's main story ultimately led us to meeting up with Voss again, but this time we surprised him instead of him sneaking up on us. And we uncovered this shirtless guy who had an unknown language of power on him, which is used a lot in the late game story. And before anything else happened, we snapped a photo, and I got a trophy for acquiring 50 photos within this game. The cutscene then had a lot of back and forth combat before Voss confessed his love for this German lesbian guy friend. And right before they both cummed, Indiana got up and knocked them both out with a single chair smash. Only American-made furniture would ever do such a thing. There was then a 30-minute long tomb section having us chase down the idol of Ra, only to have Indy grab it, then smash it just for that glorious puzzle piece inside. The room then filled up with sand as we tried to escape and almost did, but upon getting spat out, a trophy did pop. However, we got stuck comically on the surface in 5 feet of sand with just his hands and head poking out the top. Voss then just pulled up and stole the piece of information right out of our hands. He then gloated and we couldn't do anything to stop it or get out of this dire circumcision. Some time passed as well, and then a bunch of scorpions came up to us and we could only blow hot air at them to deter their attacks. I also did almost die, which is crazy, but thankfully Gina, or Mommy as I like to call her, came to save us and I couldn't be harder right now. That was then it for the Giza main story, however, so we then saw a little travel montage having us make it all the way to the snowy Himalayas. And after making it there and getting a save within it, I just went back to the Vatican to do some side activities because I for some reason felt like it. I don't know what got into me, but it might have to do with me forgetting my meds this morning. But all I did in this flashback was just fight some men. You could say I hit on men, which would be true. But I only did this because I thought I would get a trophy from fighting. However, there's actually these underground fighting rings on every major area of the game, and I was unaware of that. So I just returned back to the snowy area, and this is also not a major area of the game, just a short side one. And it consisted entirely of just frozen to death people on a ship that somehow made it to the top of a mountain. Some would say that's naturally impossible, and they are right. But the bad guys were also here, and we had to fight them again like usual. Also, Gina's sister was on this ship, and she is now dead. We lost a good one, boys. But other than that, this chapter is kind of a nothing burger, and well, nothing happened until the end with us escaping and getting another trophy pop. Indy did find this relic, however, and said the magic word, which literally teleported us to the other side of the world, right into Shanghai and World War II's peak. Awesome location choice. So then we began another nothing burger chapter, but this time we got to fly planes, and it was kind of badass. I enjoyed my time, what can I say? And after we touched Gina's soft, soothing hands before she died a gruesome, possible death, I got another trophy pop. She then jumped on into our cockpit and we talked again about feelings before flying off into the sunset, or Suki Suki land. You can't seriously expect me to be able to say this. What the fuck, bro? Just call it fancy Georgia. It's a swamp. And this is also the final major area of the game, by the way. But inside of the first big enemy controlled area of it, I ended up whip pulling an enemy's weapon, then picking it up and then shooting him to death for a trophy pop. The next trophy I would get, however, wasn't for quite some time because I had done a lot of the easy ones at this point, and all that's really left is story trophies and collectibles bullshit. Anyways, what happened in a summary is India and Gina broke into this giant temple, a huge ass snake was guarding it, which fucked me like a hot summer crush, and then the giant dude showed up to eat its ass, which he did do. Then we rode away with each other on a boat as mass casualties occurred in this river, and a trophy popped to edge us even more. We also ended up finally teaming up with the giant before heading off to the final area of the game, being in none other than Montana. I'm just kidding, it was in Iraq, an American favorite. But the gameplay here was basically just us sneaking down into the depths of this temple once more, then a cutscene played and it just had us fighting Voss in a very scenic final boss fight. A lot of water was also prevalent, so you could say I was wet, and I would have to agree. The fight was also super good. Voss knew karate as well, which was kind of funny until I got my nose busted into, but then it ended off with us just kicking each other back and forth until reaching up to Mommy to save us from certain peril, which also popped the game's main story final trophy upon touching her once more. The game's final cutscene then ended off with the giant taking this portal up to who knows where and having us just get sent somewhere safe, and a plane flew away with credits rolling. But we aren't even close to the platinum, so strap in for 12 more hours of collectibles. I'm gonna fucking crash out. So, starting off this cleanup, the main cycle and method I used was a personally created one. Yes, I didn't really follow any guides today because there isn't a great map system in this game, and you also can buy collectible maps throughout each area of the game, so there's really no point in using an outside source to assist you. But my method was to do all of the mysteries first in each area because it gives you a ton of stuff for doing them in general, but also trophies usually added on. And my first one doing this cleanup was from hitting an enemy with a fly swatter, so that's awesome. I then just completed every mystery in Vatican City for that trophy called When in Rome. But I did have a few done already, so this didn't take too horribly long. I would then begin the collectibles of Vatican City, and I want to cry again. I also did end up getting assaulted by the entire Axii forces at one time, and I had to brawl to end all brawls. But during the onslaught, I got a combat trophy from knocking out an enemy by just using counters. How fancy schmancy. I would then just keep on doing collectibles for hours without any trophies, by the way, really just ruining my life slowly each day. It's great. I love my job. And there also is not trophies for getting collectibles completed within a specific area. Instead, it's all just lumped into one trophy called Archivist, with 519 collectibles being needed for it, which is why I went about 4 hours with no trophies popping until finally doing all mysteries on Giza for that trophy, then one from some field work, and I also collected all these Stelly stones in the game. And then I would go on another dry spout with no trophies because I was back to collectible grinding once more for hours on end, ultimately making it to the swamp area, which was the last major one, and beginning the grind there, getting my first trophy from solving the gear puzzle here. Shout out to YouTube guides for that one. I then just did 3 different fieldwork missions for trophies, which I did skim past in the main story, so my apologies. But I also collected all the radio frequencies for Gina as well for another trophy. I then ate my first star fruit for my final consumable trophy, and I finally did all the mysteries of Suki Land for this trophy pop. And this did take hours, by the way, because I had to go to all the different areas of the game for one of them, and I want to die. I also did finally fight the last underground fighting champion I needed to, which was super easy for that trophy pop after. And all that I had to do now is just continue on with these collectibles for a few more hours with some of the most boring, busted, and annoyingly tedious gameplay I've ever seen a game have and trick us into thinking it's fun. Oh yeah, it also crashed numerous times also, and I just went to bed. Sleep is my new crash out. I can't afford to break any more controllers, closet doors, or tables. But when I did get on this morning, actually, to finish the game off for the video today, the first trophy I got was from getting every book in the game, and I'm pretty sure I didn't even do that, but the trophy did pop after I got almost all of them, so it's fine, I guess. I then just found all the lost artifacts, which are like normal artifacts, except more lost because the game says so. And I then got the trophy from all of the artifacts found after a little bit more of my time pissed away that I will never get back, so here's that trophy. And you also have to use those 50 artifacts and one last puzzle to open this wall door to get the true ending and final note of the game for that Archivist trophy, which will live in my nightmares for weeks to come. But my final trophy of the game, however, before the platinum, was from dodging a power attack. A power attack, you might ask, is just a charged up attack from a fat enemy. So I hunted down one of those calorie enthusiasts, and I just dodged everything until finally dodging the right one and getting that trophy pop, along with the platinum trophy added on. So that was the Indiana Ma Jones platinum trophy experience. Overall, I think the game wasn't as good as people said it was. I think about 70% of the story was perfect, but the other 30% was just annoying blah blah blah. Also, the parkour in this game, emotionlessly, sucks dick. It's extremely clippy and buggy at certain points and not great by any means. The combat is meh, the stealth is complete balls, but shit, it's Harrison Ford, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10, and I hate collectibles and puzzles. I hate everything. I think I'm depressed.